Hey there viewers, this video will walk you through our Saturday EOC review for English 2. We started out our morning by sharing good things. If you'd like to, you can text someone a good thing right now and share something good going on in your life. Our review session video will begin with our time to climb activity. From here, the video will just play unedited, recording the Zoom as it was in the classroom on April 24th. We had some students in the class and some on Zoom. Look at all these cute little explorers. There's more if you push the little arrow on your screen. There's other options, actually. There is a panda with drip. Yeah. Look at y'all cute little things. Okay, anybody still picking there? I know it's an overwhelming choice. I know you don't want to choose incorrectly. Oh, look at that. Love it. There are so many penguins. I'm going to switch. I won't be the panda with drip, but maybe I'll go be whatever this one is. The llama. I'm going to be the llama. I think I haven't started yet, so you can tap a different one if you want to switch. All right. So this little game, I'm just using this to kind of set our agenda for the day. So it's going to start. If anyone is not ready, speak now or, okay. We have a wait in the classroom. Hang on. All right, we're good. All right, here we go. I'm going to mute it because, oh. So I missed reading the first question because I wasn't paying attention. So yeah, the three main sections of the EOC is our first question. Our next question. On the revising and editing, you will likely be asked questions that test your understanding of comma rules. Is that true? Yes, you need to know commas, or is that false? Because commas are for chumps. All right, next question. Which best describes how your persuasive essay should be organized? Jump right in with your examples, give your position statement at the end. An introduction that gives your thesis, 1 to 2 body paragraphs, and end with a conclusion. Or hook, 5 pieces of evidence, and a call to action. Figurative language is only found in poetry, true or false? When we think about point of view that a story is told, what do the words point of view refer to? How the author feels about the subject, how the reader views the world, or the perspective which the story is told? In other words, the narrator. What does point of view refer to? When you're asked to make an inference, what do you take into account? Your understanding of the text, your knowledge of how the world works, or both of those things. All right, so nice job, Golda, and all of you, because I think we were all pretty close on that. Hang on, I gotta. So those are some of the things that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk a bit about the revising and editing passages. We're going to review the persuasive essay structure and talk about a couple of best practices for that. And then in reading comprehension, we're going to look at just a few things that I think are going to help you to keep in mind when you're answering those reading comprehension choices. So those are the three big sections of your EOC. And as when we looked at the STAR, the app, and we looked at the practice test, they're clearly laid out for you. The questions 1 through 18 are the revising and editing. Question 19 is the essay. And then the rest of it is the reading comprehension. And as you saw when we looked at the little tabs and how the questions are laid out, you can navigate back and forth. You don't have to do them sequentially. You can flag questions to come back to. You can answer a question and still flag it and come back to it later. So the nice thing is you can navigate through it at whatever pace, whatever approach you want to take. Okay. And just a reminder, and we did talk about this yesterday, B-Day kids, we'll talk about this on Monday when we look at the app together. But at the very, very end, you do get to review and check to make sure you've answered all questions before you hit that final submit test button. So those are just the things to keep in mind when you're working on navigating. All right, so let's get into this then. So revising and editing. This is our first big section of the EOC. And I like to say there's kind of 5 big things that they're going to test you on in this. Verb tenses, comma usage, your understanding of clauses, and then capitalization and spelling. Okay, now the revising section also looks at your ability to understand ideas, meaning they'll ask you about, do ideas fit in? How can you revise it so that it has a stronger idea here or there, stronger transitions? But really, even in the revising part, when they're asking about how a sentence can be revised, often there's some element of the clauses and verb tenses into play there too that you have to take into account. So let's practice with some verb tenses, okay? So on the screen, you're going to see a paragraph, and the paragraph is a past tense paragraph. So for certain verbs in the paragraph, there's going to be a choice between 2 verbs. Choose the one that puts the paragraph in past tense, and you can use the drawing tools in the Nearpod to make your choices. So you should see on the screen a paragraph. The words in green are 2 verb choices. Circle the ones that are past tense that would make the paragraph read in past tense. No.
No, I read it last year, for like 7th grade, and then I just didn't. I don't think I finished the book since. I mean, I started. I like reading. It's just not. Yeah. I get bored.
Did we submit it?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Go ahead and hit submit when you've done paragraph. Okay. Anybody need another minute? We good?
Hey, go run for pizza.
Hey, I'll run for pizza.
I'll run for food too.
All right. All right. Yeah. So hopefully your answers, you probably found that pretty simple. The first time I met my best friend, we were in the gym. It was a Thursday morning, and so on and so forth. So choosing the past tense form of the verb, did you find that easy or difficult? Pretty easy, right? And most of you kind of bopped through that pretty quickly. But how this looks on EOC, it would be nice if it was that way, where they gave you the two choices and let you pick between two. But on the screen now, this is how that kind of thing looks on EOC. In the revising and editing, the sentence might say, of course, since Americans are not accustomed to eating insects, many are hesitant to trying. So they've put an incorrect verb tense, and one of your answer choices is what should be changed, and the correct answer is changed to trying, to try. So from the future tense to the present tense. They could ask you to change past tense to present, present to future, future to present, any of those combinations. But how are you going to know if you should be choosing past, present, or future tense? What's gonna help you understand? What helped you in this paragraph, the practice one? The words before it, yes. So on EOC, if you have changing a verb tense as one of your answers and you're not sure if that's the correct thing to do, look at the rest of the paragraph. If the whole rest of the paragraph is in past tense, probably you're going to have to change that verb to past tense, right? Same if it's being told in the present or future, the verb will change accordingly. Hi, welcome. Okay, so use the words around it to help you understand if changing verb tense is a necessity. Okay, yes, even reading that sentence, it might sound wrong or incorrect to us. Of course, since Americans are not accustomed to eating insects, many are hesitant to trying. So it might sound like something's a little off there, but read the rest of it to help you get an understanding of what tense the sentence is being told in. All right. Looking at the other answer choices in that particular question, but there are other questions like this on EOC. If there's a spelling change, what are we going to do?
Did we get a dictionary?
You do get a dictionary, yes. So there will be electronic dictionary access. So within the EOC app, there is a dictionary in the upper corner of the there's a blue toolbar. And the dictionary, there's a little dictionary app up there. So you can look up any word that you want to, okay? And I know we have some Grand Prairie High School students maybe on here. I know here at Fine Arts Academy, I believe you are gonna have two devices, one for your test, one for the electronic dictionary, okay? So that's why it's so important you bring your iPad charged, because you're going to be using one or the other for your test and the other for your electronic dictionary. But you can also use a paper dictionary. So if for some reason your electronic dictionary is not working and you need a dictionary, raise your hand and tell your proctor you need a dictionary. Everybody gets to use a dictionary of some sort. Okay, so yeah, there's no reason to miss the spelling questions because you have a dictionary. If you're looking at these answer choices and you're not sure how accustomed is spelled, look it up. And that'll help you eliminate that answer choice right away. All right. And I know I said this to my A-Day students yesterday, but I want to reiterate it. Just because no change is needed is one of the answer choices. Don't pick it automatically. I worked in middle school for a few years, and a lot of middle school students, for some reason, had the notion that if no change is needed was one of the choices, they were going to pick it no matter what. They wouldn't even read the other things. That's a bad strategy. Okay, so do not automatically pick no change just because it's offered. All right. Okay, let's do another little practice here. So there's going to be a few sentences on the screen. They are missing either a comma or a semicolon. Okay, so every sentence needs either a comma or a semicolon. Draw the correct punctuation in the blank space. So for example, if the sentence says, insects come in all shapes and sizes, the largest insect is the Goliath beetle. That would require a semicolon. Why a semicolon? Because it has two independent clauses, one on each side. Okay, so that's our example. So go ahead and do those, and then we will talk about them. Yeah.
Are you guys on a nearby?
Oh, yes, sorry. I'm so sorry. Here's our code. Yeah, you don't have to be on the Zoom because you're here with me in the class, but if you want to go on the Nearpod.
No one saw him do it. Is that independent? Yeah, exactly.
Well, an unclear pronoun does not make it dependent.
Okay. Yeah, but who's him? Why would he still say?
Well, because Timothy had a problem.
Because he was hungry, bro. His mom obviously didn't feed him before he left the house. He was hungry.
He didn't win the pizza, so he went home and he was hungry.
He's gotta eat.
He's not very good at running.
Yeah, bro.
He's not good at running.
You just kind of have to get there, however you get there. You know?
Some days you just want to sit down and watch a movie.
Some days are 7 cookie days. Am I right?
By any means necessary.
Wait, but like, how big are the cookies? Is the question.
Right, are they like Chips Ahoy, or are they like the ones in the brown package?
Yeah.
I don't know.
The like the grandma's cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they like that big? It totally because I could kill like 7 Oreos.
Easily.
Like 7 of them.
Yes. You're putting either a comma or a semicolon.
All right. I want to see. I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, are they too much? No, they are, because it looked like everyone uses that, and well, not everyone uses it.
Don't get lost, Greg.
You could just make it 2 sentences. Right?
Okay.
Capital A. I'm guessing it's
You'll die.
Hey, bro, it's because I'm doing it with a mouse. I'm doing it with my finger. It's fine. Hey, bro, hey, don't touch the screen. It's touch screen.
Couple more minutes and then we'll go through it. Actually, not a couple minutes. Let's do 1 more minute. If you're stressed, just pick something because we're going to talk about it. So.
Not coming number 1.
So do we use commas for coordinating conjunction, coordinating conjunction or adverb clause?
Yeah. All right, so let's have a look at what we got here. We good to do that, guys? Or do you need another sec?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. All right, here we go. So we talked a bit about the semicolon rule. So a semicolon is used only to separate 2 independent clauses. That means you need to have a complete thought on either side of that semicolon, right? So our 2 semicolon questions were here, or sentences were here. Timothy stole 7 cookies. That's an independent clause. Timothy did what? Stole what? 7 cookies. Boom. No one saw him do it. That's also an independent clause. Even though him might be an unclear pronoun, that's why we're linking these two sentences with a semicolon, because no one saw him do it is very closely related to the sentence before it. Timothy stole 7 cookies. So that would be why a semicolon might be a good idea in that case, okay? The other one down at the bottom, I forgave my brother for what he did. Independent clause, full sentence right there. His behavior showed that he was truly sorry. Same thing, that's a full sentence and independent clause, okay? Let's look at our commas. When people start to be kinder, comma, the world will become a better place. Of those two clauses, which is the independent clause? The world will become a better place. That's our full sentence. And then our introductory clause is when people start to be kinder. So we know that would need a comma, okay? Because this is dependent on the rest of the sentence. Timothy stole 7 cookies, but I controlled myself. Why a comma there? Because Timothy stole 7 cookies and I controlled myself is a complete sentence, but whenever we're using a coordinating conjunction, one of our fanboys, we need a comma before the coordinating conjunction if there's a complete thought over here. I controlled myself is a complete thought. Okay, if you put your little finger over that word but, Timothy stole 7 cookies, comma, I controlled myself, that doesn't work. The comma only works because it's a coordinating conjunction, the comma but. So the next sentence, the trip to Mexico lasted 7 days, comma, and it was one of the best trips of my life. That's the same rule as the one above it. We have a coordinating conjunction and. So comma, conjunction, okay? And then our last sentence here, as she ran across the finish line, comma, Julia felt an enormous sense of triumph, which is our dependent clause in that sense. As she ran across the finish line, right? That clause is dependent on the rest of the sentence to make sense. Okay. So good job, guys. This is how, oh, and yeah, so I have that. So you can take a screenshot of this if you want. Independent, independent, you'd use a semicolon. Dependent, independent, comma. Independent, comma, fanboy, independent. Okay. So here's how this could look on EOC. According to a report from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, there are 1,900 edible insect species on Earth. So the question then, what change should be made to sentence 1? So that colon, they could ask you about a colon, semicolon, like either of those might be the incorrect punctuation, okay? And since we don't see colons too much, it could be tempting to think, oh, that must be there because it looks like an important piece of punctuation. But why would that be changed? Why does that need to be changed to a comma? Yes, because that first part of it, according to a report from the Food and Agriculture, that's a dependent clause. That doesn't make a full sentence on its own. According to a report from the Food and Agriculture Organization, what? You know, it's not a full thought. So that should be a comma. Because there are 1,900 edible insect species on Earth, that one is a full sentence. So that is a situation like this. It's a dependent, comma, independent. All right, so that's how that could look on EOC. Capitalization, why wouldn't organization be lowercase? Because it's a proper name of the Food and Agriculture Organization. It's part of the proper noun, right? It's the name. And why wouldn't species be specieses? Because it's not possessive, right? It's just plural. It just means more than one. Specieses. Specieses. Okay, so there you go. So that's how that could look on EOC. All right. Oh, here's another one too. So here's another way this could look on EOC. Also, so here, this is in a revising part. Also consider that chemicals are released by these many bottles when they are discarded into landfills over hundreds of years and decompose. Even reading that in your head, it sounds like way too many words running together, right? So we think this is either going to need to be broken into different sentences, or it's going to need some punctuation to separate clauses, or some word tenses might need to change in order to revise it to make it a correct sentence. So also consider that chemicals are released by these many bottles when they are discarded into landfills over hundreds of years and decompose. In reading our answer choices, also consider that many bottles are discarded into landfills, comma, where the bottles release chemicals as they decompose over hundreds of years. So also consider that many bottles are discarded into landfills. That's actually a complete thought. Where the bottles release chemicals as they decompose over hundreds of years. That's a dependent clause. So what they've revised it to is a situation where we have an independent clause and the dependent clause at the end separated by a comma. Because this is revising, it's not just adding the comma though, they reorganize the words of the sentence to make that independent and dependent clause. But let's look at why the other ones are incorrect. Also consider that landfills are filled with released chemicals where they decompose many discarded bottles over hundreds of years. That is also dependent and independent. Independent and dependent. But the reason that wouldn't be correct is where they decompose many discarded bottles, they've added the pronoun there, they, makes it unclear, makes it too unclear to be correct, okay? These bottles, decomposing over hundreds of years, should also be considered to release chemicals where they have been discarded into landfills. That one, again, they just reorganize some words, but things are not very clear as to what is releasing the chemicals and what has been discarded. It could be the chemicals, it could mean the bottles. Over hundreds of years, landfills are filled with many bottles, so far so good. And it should also be considered that the bottles decompose. That's just too clunky, too many words, okay? So more words don't mean better in the revising. Look for the neatest way to say it, and often they'll do it by just doing a simple independent clause, comma, dependent clause, where the pronouns and everything more clearly show the relationships between the items in the sentence. Okay, so that's my tip there. Remember, bigger doesn't mean better when it comes to sentences. Okay. All right. So our last activity for this little revising and editing section. Write a sentence about video games, and I want you to pick the structure of the sentence you want to use. You can do two independent clauses with a semicolon, or an independent and a dependent with a comma, or a comma coordinating conjunction. But choose one of those three structures we kind of just talked about and type a sentence. And if you don't want to write about video games and you want to write about pizza or cookies, that's fine too. It's more the practice of the punctuation that we're worried about. Nice job. Why is it that time goes faster when you're playing video games?
Because you're having fun, because it's something that you can't stop. It's something that you know you can't just
No, because
Pick up.
you're not paying attention to the duration of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big words. Duration of
Do you guys remember last semester? You may not remember this, but when we did that little debate or not debate, but I asked you your opinions on whether PS4 at the time, PS4 or the Xbox was better, what you would pick.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Are wrong. It's the PS5.
Well, I know, but my son finally chose, he ordered a PS4 because he couldn't get a PS5, but he did finally get a PS4 and he loves it. So, yep.
You should. PS is 30% better than Xbox. No questions asked.
It depends on, it depends on what you're trying.
No,
Yeah,
that's
I
not
think-
TV.
I think console wars is the most.
But you know what? One of you guys, and I think it was you, somebody gave the advice that when we were talking about which is better to get, one of y'all said, get what most of your friends have because then you can play with
Yeah,
them.
that's what I said.
Yeah, and I remember that, and that was actually the advice that ended up choosing it for him, and it made the most sense.
I'm
So
on Xbox, he's on PlayStation, and I don't know. If we talk a little too much.
Yeah.
I own.
All right. So scale of 1 to 10, how good do you feel about commas and semicolons at this moment? Anyway,
I'm choosing
7,
7.
8,
19.
19, good.
Scale?
What was the scale? On a scale of cookies to pizza, how confident are we?
What kind of
Oh,
scale?
pizza. No,
We're pizza?
But like,
Okay.
then the food-
I feel like half of a cookie.
I play it.
Just remember when you're doing the revising and editing and punctuation, commas are an option. Look for things like lists. They don't often do lists. They're more going to probably test to see if you can figure out that there's clauses on either side that need to be separated with a comma, but it could be a list or it could be the comma incorrectly placed or missing from a date. But just read what's on either side of the punctuation. If they're suggesting to stick a comma somewhere, read what's on either side, thinking in your head, is this going to make this separate an independent clause from a dependent clause? Is it using a coordinating conjunction? What's happening here before you make your choice? Okay. All right. Yes.
This might be a little cheat sheet, but
Mhm.
if you like don't remember rules, you can literally look them up in the dictionary and it tells you.
Absolutely. So you can look up the word comma in the
I'll
dictionary,
give you an example, some of them do too.
right? And here's another thing. All of your passages in your thing have punctuation. If you don't remember like commas and phrases, stuff like that, pay attention to what's maybe going on in another passage. Look for some commas and sentences that are similarly structured. And maybe you can make an inference or a best guess on that. But yeah, look up the word comma, look up the word semicolon.
And a lot of questions will like answer other questions.
Mhm.
So
They
you
will.
just, like,
Pay attention.
you just-
Yeah.
One time I got a question wrong, and then like the 7th question, I was like, okay, based on this question and this answer.
So here's the thing. This is one of the places where the fact that we're all taking it online is actually going to be to your benefit, because it's a lot easier to flip back to a question and click something else than when we had to erase and rebubble and all that stuff, right? So don't feel like if you get farther down the test and you're like, oh, wait, what I'm reading here actually helps me figure this out. Go back and fix it. You can do that. All right. So let's take a minute. If any of you guys that are at home on Zoom need to go get a drink, grab a snack, go to the bathroom, any of those things. We're going to take, actually, we'll take a 3-minute break. 3-minute bathroom break. And I'll set a timer. Okay.
Dude, you walk so heavy.
Well, I thought together with the thing.
Yeah, but you just walk heavy.
And also-
Bro, I'm craving a Wendy's chicken sandwich right now.
Oh, do you do the spicy chicken sandwich or the regular one?
So, I mean, like, this is one of the joys of fast food. Even if you didn't want the spicy one, they fry it in the same oil. So it's basically spicy anyway. So it doesn't really Gives it a little bit of a kick.
Yep. That's funny. My daughter doesn't tend to like spicy stuff, but she loves Wendy's spicy nuggets.
Oh yeah, they're good.
So,
They're not like excessively hot either.
yeah, just the right amount.
Well, I like Chick-fil-A. They change their oil pretty often.
Mm-hmm.
To most fast food places, so, like their food always doesn't taste like previous food.
Yep. I think we're gonna go do, this is my son, Cooper. I think we're gonna go do A&W drive-through after we leave here for lunch today.
That's definitely Kate. Yep.
Your flashlight's on.
Oh, yeah, I can see the bathroom.
Yeah, the lights are off.
Just use the teacher bathroom.
The teacher bathroom's locked.
The one's upstairs.
Oh, they aren't? Okay.
Huh? No. That's nice. It's not like a light switch, it's like a key.
Yeah, they have phone.
Which one, which urinal did you use?
I'll talk about that in a minute. That's a great question.
Bro, it's so gross, because the middle schoolers use all of the bathrooms now because they move classrooms around, so it's like the urinal. is
Yeah.
like-
Middle schoolers are gross.
Yeah,
It's just like everywhere.
When you go to the middle school restrooms, you notice that they're much dirtier. Like,
Yeah.
Like the floor is more sticky. It's just like
Walk out.
you walk out and you're
Yeah.
just like.
It sounded like Squidward. Like,
It's because middle school, because you know, middle school boys, highlighting the boy part, they pee all over the floor. It's just like, where are y'all aiming? If y'all don't know how to aim, use the toilet. at least.
Wait, y'all can use the toilet?
Yeah. We just have
This is the first
stalls,
one.
because girls just have like all stalls, but then we have like one or two, and then the rest of the community.
Oh, I used the urinal.
Oops.
Okay, the girls' restroom was closed.
How?
I sat down.
Changing the subject.
All right. Moving right along. Moving right along. Okay. We're going to start out with a little poll here. Would you rather only charge your phone once a week or not have a camera on your phone? I don't know why it scrolled. There's a scroll there. So would you rather only charge your phone once a week or not have a camera on your phone?
Yeah, you can't, like, I'll die in like 2 days.
Okay. Zach has an Xbox. I would have thought you were about an Xbox.
Well, yeah, I think what ended up like solidifying it for him was the games too. Like, I forget what game it was, but there was one game that he couldn't get on Xbox.
Oh, that's
It's either Spider-Man or God of War.
Yeah,
He did get both of those, I think.
Because those are like the ones that.
Yeah, I'm missing out. I was genuinely considering getting a PS4 just for that game.
All right, so it looks like the majority of us would rather not have a camera. Interesting. All right. Next question. Would you rather wear winter clothes in the summer or summer clothes in the winter?
I do that anyway. Summer clothes in the winter, I do that anyway.
Actually,
I'm so brave.
I'm not.
I would not wear winter.
That's a fun.
I like literally all the
Are you
way
talking
through
about
middle
in
school. I wore
Texas
shorts.
or not in Texas?
Yeah, here where we live. Summer clothes in the winter, winter clothes in the summer.
Yeah, it'll be like 84 in the middle of winter in Texas, and then the next day it'll be still sun. And the next day it'll be still.
Okay, submit your answers. More of us would rather wear summer clothes in the winter. All right, and last but not least, would you rather have a friend exactly like you or a friend who is completely different from you?
I'll just not have friends.
Exactly like you or completely different?
Yes.
Are you saying you don't like me, Trey?
I don't think I have a problem.
Well, we're the same. So I don't know.
I mean, I don't really let it look like, I don't like, they better be like me. Or like, they better not be like me. Like, it's just like.
All right, we're going to look at what we have here. So majority are completely different. All right, so, oh, what do we have here? Someone joining in. Hang on one sec. Thank you.
Completely different.
Because you see.
Completely opposite, because that's the only way you could be doing.
All right, so it's pretty easy when, when you have two choices that are very clear, this or this, to make one sometimes. But most all of you, once you made your choice, you had something to say about it. You had some, well, I would rather this because blah, blah, blah. Our persuasive essay prompt is the same way. Treat it the same way as a would you rather, okay? So would you rather this or this? And we're gonna write an essay stating our opinion on it. We're gonna expand on our thoughts. When we talked in class, we talked about how your essay prompt is going to look like this, right? And you have a boxed quotation and then a think about statement beneath that boxed quotation. Does anyone remember, what did I say the purpose of those two items were? The boxed quote and the statement below it? Yes, yes. So they're going to be related to the topic of the prompt, and they're there to jumpstart your ideas about the topic. However, you don't have to agree with what they're saying in the boxed quote and the think about. And you don't even have to write about the boxed quote and the think about statement. You don't have to mention those two things at all to have a great persuasive essay. They are only there to jumpstart your thoughts on the topic. All right. And what we are writing about is the prompt statement that begins, write an essay stating your opinion, blah, blah, blah. Okay. That is the thing you're writing about. On the rubric, when we looked in the rubric, remember in that score point 4, one of the things on the rubrics clearly says the writer establishes a clear position. All ideas are strongly related to that position and are focused on the issue specified in the prompt. When they say prompt, they're meaning that write about statement. And then by sustaining this focus, the writer is able to create an essay that is unified and coherent. What does coherent mean?
Able to understand.
Able to understand, yes. It's logical, it makes sense, and it's related to the prompt. So if all you write about is the boxed quote, that's not gonna hit the score point 4, okay? And like I said, you may not even agree with whatever is in that boxed quote. So to establish, first and foremost, you're writing about the prompt. All right, let's give a little practice here. So let's say this was our prompt, okay? Read the information in the box below. You'd be surprised how much you have in common with someone completely different from you. Some people avoid making friends with people who have different hobbies and ideas because they don't like change. Others, however, stick closely with people who are just like they are. Write an essay stating your opinion on whether it is better to have friends who are similar to you or are completely different from you. Okay, so what's our write about? What are we going to write about? Yeah, exactly. What does the quote, what side of the argument do you think the person who wrote the quote is on? That it's better to have completely different, because that's what the quote says. But is it okay if your essay is about you'd rather have a friend somewhere same? Yeah.
So like, when I get things like this, I tend to like get a bad scoring because like I don't really agree with it being like a choose one type thing.
Okay.
So like if I don't agree with like this entire thing, then like
what do you do?
Yeah.
Okay, I love that you asked that. And so the question for you guys that are at home is, what if you don't agree that one or the other is the right thing? Okay. It is perfectly okay to take the position that there is a place for both. That is an okay thing to do. If you write your position statement that says and I'm going to think in this case how to word that. So having friends who are similar to you can help give you a place of belonging. However, at times, friends who are different can give you a new perspective on life. If that's your position statement and your examples, you write an example that supports both of what you say in the position statement, that's okay. All right. I know when we learn persuasive essays, we say you have to be 100% one or the other, but in reality, it's okay. It's okay to present a position statement that expresses a situation where both is okay, as long as you do it clearly and as long as your evidence supports both and not one or the other. Because if you say, if your position is there's a time and a place for people to have friends who are similar and different, okay, if that was your position statement, but then all your example talked about was differences and why differences are better, that's not going to support your position statement, because the idea in the position statement is each has its place. So your example better also show that each has its place. Okay. Your position statement is your stance on the prompt. So it's okay to take a stance that shows the complexity of the issue. And the complexity is that there is a time and place for both. The reason why when we're learning and we're practicing persuasive essays in class is, and we tell you pick a side and stick with it if you can, is because it's difficult to do that well. If your position, if you write your essay and you take the position that there's a time and place for both things, whatever those both things are, after you write your essay, read through your example and make sure that you're supporting that position. Because if you're not, go ahead and just change the position. If you find when you're working through your evidence and your example that you're leaning more one way than the other, you're better off going back and adjusting your position statement, because it's more about, is the essay coherent than what do you really think? Okay. Does that help? Does that make sense? Okay. So all right, so we're gonna move on and then we'll see what other questions come up. Any other questions about that right now? Okay. This little part that's down here, the be sure to part, are some reminders from the rubric. State your position clearly, use appropriate organization. And what is organization gonna mean for us? Structure, yeah. What is one way we provide structure to our essay? Thesis, body paragraphs, what else? Ending with a conclusion. And what you, make sure you have a clear introduction. How do we move through our essay? With transitions, yes, transitioning ideas from one to the next. Okay, so those are some reminders that will be on the prompt. So let's look at this. So look at the two thesis statements on the screen. Okay, so there's two thesis statements there in response to the prompt, whether it's better to have friends who are similar or who are completely different. The first one says, friends who are completely different from you will bring a new perspective to your life that will make your life better. The second one says, friends who are different from you are better to have for many good reasons. So which would be a better thesis statement? Go ahead and select it.
See, this is exactly what I'm saying. Like, I don't agree with like both of these.
It's okay to not agree with this example, but look at the elements that make it a thesis statement and pick one that you think is better as a thesis statement. Maybe you don't agree with it, but pick the one you think is a better thesis statement.
This is like, since I don't agree, I feel like value on both sides.
Yep.
So then it's like kind of hard to choose one or the other.
Right. Believe me, I completely get it. And I've written essays where the purpose of this persuasive essay, honestly, the person reading and grading your essay, they don't care what you think. They don't care. What they're looking for is, does this student understand the elements of writing a persuasive essay? Because that's what the rubric is about. The rubric isn't about, do I agree with this person? It's, is this essay organized? Does this person write a position statement and then keep all the ideas in the essay related to that position statement? Does this person understand proper sentence structures, grammar, capitalization? Like those are the things they're looking at, is do you have the skills to write a persuasive essay? Because when you move into like AP English next year and you get into college courses and stuff like that, man, you'll get to really like make a strong thesis, a strong opinion and position statement and back it up, and and the ideas become more interesting, I guess. And so what we're just looking at here is, do you get the elements? Do you understand the pieces of it? So if you can kind of separate yourself from that a little bit to say, okay, I've just got to write a well-structured essay with clear evidence that supports my idea, you'll be all right. Okay, and that's why we say too that this is the one place where you can make up examples and you don't have to have like credible sources to back them up, because it's more about, do you understand the use of it rather than is it necessarily 100% accurate? So, okay, so it looks like the majority of us chose A. And so what made A a stronger thesis statement in this example? Let me see if I can get it back on the screen so we can read it. Oh yeah, there it is. So friends who are completely different from you bring a new perspective to your life that will make your life better. So what made that one stronger than the other one? Yeah, exactly. The other one kept it generic and said for many reasons. Didn't give us any specific reason, but here we have a reason, because they'll bring a new perspective to your life that will make your life better. Okay, so in your thesis, avoid those vague generalities. Avoid saying things like, it's going to be good and now I'm going to tell you why. That's not a reason. That's just telling me what you're planning to do. And we know you're planning to do that because you're writing an essay. So give a specific reason that is something compelling, meaning it's something interesting, it's something that can bring about change in some way, and that you can have a specific example to back it up. Okay. All right. So here's a sample body paragraph that could go along with the thesis we just worked. Okay. So in 6th grade, I met a new student who had just moved here from India. We became friends, and one weekend she invited me to sleep over. I was nervous at dinner because her mom made a dish I'd never heard of before. It was called tandoori chicken. I learned that weekend that I love the spices used in Indian cooking. I tried making some of these meals for my own family. If I hadn't met a friend who was different from me, my life would not have been made better, as I probably would never have been adventurous enough to try Indian food. Okay, so why in this paragraph, what kind of things do we see here? So what does this start out, this phrase in 6th grade? So why would that be a good thing to start out that paragraph with? It sets, I couldn't hear exactly what you said first. Yeah, it lets me know that I'm going into a flashback here. I'm starting to give an example. It's not a traditional transition word like for one thing or for example, but it still works as a transition because I'm giving setting or context to the example I'm about to give. So you could say, for example, in 6th grade, I met a student. That's just fine. But if you just started out with your with setting the context, that's okay too. Both do give structure and context to what's coming in the body paragraph. Okay, so what else is an important element of this paragraph that you need to remember when you're writing body paragraphs? Anything come to mind that we talked about? It's concise, it's clear. She used a personal anecdote. Yep. Yes. Yes, all those things. And what she said here, and at the end, she restated or showed clearly why this example supported her thesis. If I hadn't met a friend who was different from me, those are words used in our position statement, my life would not have been made better, as I probably would never have been adventurous enough to try food. So we've got context, we've got a very specific example that doesn't get too wordy, and at the end of it, we tie it back to our thesis statement. So those are all things you want to do in your body paragraphs. Okay? All right, so a little bit of brain work. Think of a time when someone who is different from you made your life better or gave you a new perspective. Or think of a specific situation from literature, history, or a study you've read that supports the idea that different people can improve and make life better for one another. Okay, and I'm going to give you just a few minutes here to try to think of a specific example that could support that position statement. So on the screen, I put the thesis sentence. Oh no, did I? Yes. Think of a time when someone different from you made your life better. So a personal anecdote or a specific example from literature, history, or something that you can think of that would support the idea that differences can improve someone's life. So I'm going to give a few minutes for that one.
Ms. Sosby,
Yes.
can you put in the Nearpod code again? Because students who came in later.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't think-
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's right here. The Nearpod code's right up here, but I
Yep,
can
yep.
put it in.
It's M6YEL.
Because we've had 3 or 4 come in. I just realized
Oh,
they
thank you,
may not be able
Marquette.
to see it.
Okay, so what I'm loving is I'm looking at the examples that you guys are giving is the specificity of them. You guys are giving specific situations to support the thesis, and that's really important to remember when you get to the essay portion of your EOC and you're writing your essay. Staying vague looks like giving just more kind of if you read back your essay and it sounds more like you're giving advice but not saying anything specific in that advice, you probably need to rework your example. Okay, if you've got something that you're working with where you're talking about a specific situation or a specific time of your life or a specific book you've read or a specific movie you've seen, you're probably on the right track. And you want to then just make sure that the example you give supports that position and has a connection sentence or statement at the end. But if you can read back through it and what you read can just apply to anybody, anywhere, and doesn't give any specificities, you're probably in danger of being on that II borderline, okay? You need specifics. And what can help with that is the transition and the context. So I'm gonna share just a couple things in the screen on the screen. So in this example, it starts out in the movies. So that's giving me context. In the movies, there are no two people more different than Iron Man and Captain America. And then it talks a little bit. And then the end sentences, at the end of the day, they learned their differences were exactly what was needed to make the world a better place. So I'm just going to click on a couple and we're going to look at the transitions, how the sentence starts out to give context. There was a book I read in 6th grade that gives me context. I'm looking at a specific example here. Very good. Oops, wait. Sorry. When I transferred to JIPFA at the beginning of my freshman year, we've got context. Very good. Sorry, it's what it says in my head. Over the years, okay, we're giving context. And then we have, and that's a lead sentences, and then we specifically have in 1st grade. Very good, very good. In Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, we have a specific context. From the movie Holes. And then we go on with our example. So y'all, I love it. And I'm looking through the rest of these reading. When I went to summer camp in 8th grade, I once read a book that said, in a book I read about this. For instance, I watched a show called this. Those are all good things. Setting the context for your example is going to help make sure you're giving a specific example. So excellent. All right. Any questions on the body paragraph? It's so hard to prepare, right? Because we don't know what it's going to be. We don't know what they're going to ask, but we do know you're going to have to give a specific example. We do know you're going to have to give context. We do know it's going to have to clearly tie back to your position statement. So those are the things to keep in mind. And if you can't think of a good example, what I would suggest is don't stay vague in general. On your scratch paper, write down some ideas and then pay attention to in the rest of the essay what the content or types of passages you're reading are. See if you can work an idea from something you read in the fiction or poem. Sometimes you can take something you've read because there will be some kind of either fiction or literary nonfiction or informational article or something that's going to have specific examples and evidence and information. Take something from that and work it to suit your purposes. You can be creative with your examples, just have specific examples, okay? All right. Let's see what I had next on there. Okay, oh, so I had a break time. So does anyone want to take, we have one more little section that we're gonna talk about and then in the reading comprehension part. Does anybody need or want a break or do you want me to just go ahead and then we'll be done when we're done? Break? Be done? Keep going. Okay, we are forging on. All right, so reading comprehension part. So that is going to be when you're looking at the numbered questions, that one starts at question 20 and goes to question 53. So it's the most number of multiple choice questions are in that reading comprehension part. And the types of text you will read will be some combination of fiction, poetry, literary nonfiction, which could include maybe an essay or a memoir, informational articles, and persuasive articles, or maybe even a speech from a famous person or something like that. I don't know what the combination will be, but there will be some kind of combination of those types of texts, okay? And guaranteed, 2 of those passages will be questions where you're asked connection questions on. So it could be the fiction and the persuasive article, or the poetry and the information article, or the poetry and the fiction. We don't know what the connecting passages will be, but there will be 2 passages that you'll be asked questions individually and then some connections. But all of that makes up the reading comprehension part of the essay. I want you to look at this, what I have on the screen here, okay? Taking the essay out of it. So essay makes kind of question 53. But if we were to number the questions 1 to 52, with check marks being correct answers and X's being incorrect answers, what do you notice about this test from beginning to end? Okay. Anybody else want to vocalize that?
Probably revising and editing was first, because that's usually easier than the other ones.
Okay.
They probably got more tired as it was going.
Mm-hmm. Yes to all those things. If this was, this is a real student's right, wrong answer, a snapshot of the right, wrong answers from a real student, what we would see is they started out getting a lot of them correct. It could be for a variety of reasons. It could be because the revising and editing part is a little bit easier for them. Or it could be that they got tired as the test goes on. What I've seen more often than not is the students get tired as the test goes on. And it's not so much that you're tired, it's that you tend to answer more quickly without thinking it through as much as maybe we do in the beginning. And so usually right here around question like 30, 31, you've gotten through the revising and editing. You've maybe done your essay, you start the reading comprehension and you do all right on the first passage or so, but then you're like, I'm tired of reading. I'm not going to read these anymore. I'm just going to jump right to the questions. And so you start missing them. Please don't let this happen to you. Take breaks in between the different sections. By break, I don't mean put your head down and try to sleep, because I know it's tempting, right? Because you're like, okay, I've still got 3 hours. I've got a lot of questions left. I'm just going to take a little nap. But when you sleep, your brain starts to shut down. Your brain is not as alert to what's going on when you're sleeping. So you are better off to go to the restroom, get a drink of water, splash some water in your face, slap your cheeks to, get some blood flow and jump up and down a little bit, whatever you need to do to wake yourself up, but stay alert to finish strong. Okay, because the majority of questions that are missed at the end of the test. And I don't believe it's because kids don't know the answers. I believe it's because we get tired and we lose our stamina. So, so stay with it, please, when you get to your reading comprehension questions. Drink water, keep your blood moving, do what you have to do to stay awake. No napping, okay? All right, so what I want us to look at, if you look on your screen, there is a passage here, and we're gonna just look at a few, we're just gonna look at 5 questions and talk about some strategies for answering them. So this is a passage from a previous EOC test, and it's called Voyagers. All right. what I'd like to do, I don't want to read it out loud. I'd rather you guys go ahead and look at the passage. And there's questions at the end. Questions are 19 to 25. I'm only going to go over 19 through 23. I'm only going to go over the first 5 of the questions. So I want to give you about several minutes to go ahead and read that and try answering the questions. You're going to have to like write your answers down on paper or remember them because this is just a PDF. There's no way of like writing on this or entering your answers anywhere. So read through it, make your answer choices for 19 through 23. And then in a couple minutes, we'll talk about them and talk about strategies for answering them. Okay. Yeah. Do you want something to scribble on? Okay.
Are the questions supposed to be on the same thing? Because mine isn't like. I had to go to Google Chrome because it didn't work in this part. Okay. It was weird because whenever on Google Chrome, it gives you a thing that says click to open webcam, and then on Safari, it just has the first page.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it works in Google.
That is good to know. See, on my iPad, it just pulled up, so I didn't. Oh, did I switch screens on y'all? I'm sorry. Is that okay? I can go back. I'm sorry.
You did the first line, right?
Yeah, just 19 to 23. Another couple minutes, then we'll go ahead and go over. We're going to go over the questions, so don't fret if you feel stuck or.
Oh, great.
Actually, one more minute and then we'll get started so that we can make sure we get through it on time.
Yes.
Okay. So let's look at the first question together. So the first question is a vocabulary question. In paragraph 2, what does clambered mean? And you're going to have some vocabulary questions where they give you definitions and they ask you which definition best fits the way this is used in the sentence. And then there's some where they say in this paragraph, what is in this context, right? what does this word mean? And so anyone want to share what they got for that? B, climbed awkwardly on all fours. Now, usually, as with all your questions, usually there's going to be one answer that you can just rule out and you know is completely wrong, and one that probably is wrong, but you're going to have the correct answer and a lead distractor. So a main distractor answer that you're going to be torn between. If you had to pick a distractor, like the next closest right answer, what would you have said in this one, anybody? Maybe A, called back and forth. How come? What would make us pick A? Because it's talking about something the otters were doing. And it's talking about, look at that, the start of that clamored sentence. Then one after another, they clamored. And A says one another. So there's similar words there, which might make you go, oh, well, maybe that is the right answer. But if you visualize in your head what the otters are doing, one after another, they clambered back on the rock and dove in over and over like children taking turns. You can kind of visualize in your head, that's a movement thing they're doing. They're climbing on the rock, they're jumping off, they're getting on the rock, they're jumping off. And that could help you get to the correct answer. So if you're struggling between two things and it's a vocabulary like that, picture in your head what's going on, because that could help lead you to the right answer. Okay. And so in this case, the back onto the rock and then the dove in, that action would help you figure out, oh, it's climbing awkwardly, not necessarily calling out and verbalizing. Okay. So the next question, the description of the otters in paragraphs 1 and 2 suggests that they are loving, hostile, playful, or tense. What do y'all think? Playful, yeah. What would our lead distractor answer be? Maybe loving? Yeah, I would think so for sure. But what can help us get to playful? What kind of things would help you get playful as opposed to loving? Yeah, that very last sentence. And they actually say, like children taking turns on a playground slide. They're playing, right? So look for words in the paragraphs they draw you to, that the action words that can help you pick the more correct answer. I would say the otters are probably loving. That's not probably wrong, but we're looking at the best answer for it. And in this case, what they're describing is the playful nature of the otters. Okay. All right. In paragraph 7, the author includes the information about his daughter's studies primarily to what? And so if we go to paragraph 7, always quick to notice the flicker of life, Eva had spent the past 2 summers studying birds with a research team, and now, halfway through college, she had become a disciplined as well as passionate observer. Science had complicated her vision without lessening her delight in other creatures. So what do you guys think the correct answer is on this one? C? What would our distractor answer be if you had to pick a main distractor? D, some say B. I think, in my opinion, I think D is probably the closer distractor, because provide background information about their trip. Well, it doesn't do that, right? It doesn't give background information about their trip. Explain the details of her scientific research studies. It does say that she studied birds, which is why that would make a possible distractor answer. But how it starts out here, explain the details. We don't know details about her studying birds with the research team. It just makes a statement that she did that, right? Indicate the delight in nature need not disappear with scientific knowledge. What helps us get to that is the right answer? What word necessarily? Maybe that word delight, because actually it's right there in the paragraph, right? And this is a case where even though the word is in both places, it's used in the same way. So it does help us get to that right answer. Show that scientific knowledge has the ability to transform our attitudes about all life. What kind of words actually make that wrong? all life, right? It's not doing that. And so look in your answer choices, look out for words like that, those big definitive words like always, never, everything about this, all of it, you know, because more than likely those are not going to be correct, but they sound pretty good as distractor answers. Okay. All right. Which quotation best illustrates the author's yearning for connection with the world? So in that sentence stem, which quotation best illustrates the author's yearning for connection with the world? What word is a key word in that sentence stem that you're going to be looking for in your answer choice? Yearning, right? That's the big word that we're looking for. So we're looking for an answer choice that expresses yearning for connection with the world. So what do you guys think? J. What part of J makes that correct? I desired. If you looked up, if you didn't know what yearning meant and you looked it up in the dictionary, it actually, the word desire, it says to express a desire. So that could help you get to the correct answer, J. When it says which quotation best illustrates the author's yearning for connection with the world, answer choice F, science had complicated her vision without lessening her delight in other creatures. Why wouldn't that even be close to being right? It's not talking about the author. The her, if we remember, was the daughter, right? So that doesn't do it. We had been canoeing in Boundary Waters Wilderness for several days, long enough for the men's faces, blah, blah, blah. So what makes that just clearly not right? Yeah, it's kind of about all of them, and it's just giving us some facts about what they did. It's not talking about anything else. It's just giving kind of the background information. So this one, H, is probably our good distractor answer because it's the author talking here now. I am a poor sort of shaman. Shaman? Shaman. I don't know where that came from. My shape, probably that's where it came from. I'm a poor sort of shaman. My shape never changes except year by year to wrinkle and sag. So he's describing himself, but it doesn't talk anything about yearning or desire for anything. It's just stating some facts about himself. But that's probably our distractor because we finally do have something where the author is talking about himself. But then J, I desired their instruction as if by watching them, I might learn to belong somewhere as they so thoroughly belonged here. So good. Look in your stems for the main words that is what the question's asking. And in this case, it was yearning. All right, one more. In paragraph 2, the author uses the figurative language, their tails flipping up to gleam like wands in the early sunlight, to illustrate the, what do you guys think? A? Yes, so why? So first of all, figurative language, and if you remember when we did our little time to climb at the beginning, one of the questions was, could figurative language be found in poetry only? And that answer is no, it cannot. This is a literary nonfiction passage with figurative language. Figurative language can be in any genre of writing. And so the figurative language, you're looking for things like the imagery, a simile, a metaphor, highly descriptive words, those kind of things could refer to figurative language. So in this case, their tails flipping up to gleam like wands. What kind of figurative language is that? That's indicating magic. Yeah, it's a simile, and it's comparing them to something magical. Mystical also would fit, right? Wands, you know, that can give you a mystical feel, but why isn't mystical, why isn't B the right answer? It's talking about the morning, and the figurative language is talking about who? The otters, right? So B would be a distractor, but A is the right answer because the tails flipping is talking about the otters. Okay, so yes, that would be A. Okay, so those are some of the strategies for that. And you know, when you're going through, look at what it's asking about, think about, is my answer choice supporting what the question is actually referring to? Because more often than not, too, that distractor answer might be something else from the passage. It's just not related to this question. So if you just rely on, oh yeah, I read that in the passage, and you circle that as your correct answer, it might be something in the passage, but it's not necessarily what this question is asking about. So, you know, looking at the part of the stem that says things like in paragraph 2, in paragraphs 1 and 2, in sentence 7, you know, like pay attention to the context where they're pushing you to go look for your answer choices. Okay. So kind of the final tips I had: eat a good breakfast in the morning, take bathroom and water breaks that are not sleeping breaks, bathroom and water breaks, read your answer choices, verify your evidence. To get back to the question you had before about when to do the essay, there's no right or wrong answer to what order to tackle the sections in. Because you're doing it digitally, and because it gives you that reminder at the end, hey, you didn't answer these answer choices, go back, check these. You're less likely to skip answers than we were in the Scantron days when we were filling out a Scantron. But this is how I would approach it, okay, if it was me. And I find the revising and editing sometimes a little bit easier for myself. So I would start out with those and get some success under my belt. I would flag any that I maybe had questions on, but I would do the revising and editing first. Then I would look at the essay. I would see what the prompt was. I would see what I'm being asked to write about. And I would get my scratch paper and start to brainstorm some ideas of what I think I would want to take the position on and what examples I could use. I would get my brain flowing there. If I feel really good about it, I might go ahead and work on my essay next, but I would only do that. I would not do that for more than an hour. Okay. I would work on my essay for a period of time and then say, okay, I'm not going to be done with this yet, but I've worked on it. Then I would go do the reading comprehension, see if any new ideas come to me as I'm reading that. In this particular Voyagers passage, this is someone like being in awe with nature, noticing the differences between him and the otters and wishing he could be like them. If my prompt was something about differences and similarities, maybe I pull some of that into it. You know, I don't know, I'm not saying, but you know, like you can use some ideas from that. Then I would go back to my essay, read what I've written, edit it, revise it, make it better, stronger, look for repetition, make sure my examples are clear, capitalize any letters, make sure I have paragraphs with structure. And then I would end having proofread my essay. That's how I would tackle it. I wouldn't do the essay all at once and then not go back and look at it. So if you're the kind of person that you want to do your essay first, don't spend more than an hour on it because you've got the rest of the thing to do, but take a period of time, do it, go do your other stuff, come back to the essay. Okay. Just make sure that whatever you do with the essay, you go away from it, but you come back and read it again, because fresh eyes looking at it will help you see some things that maybe need correcting. All right. And gosh, it is really a blessing that you're getting to type it out, that everybody's getting to type it out, because there's no reason not to go back and make revisions. When you had to write it on the paper, it was a pain. If you read something, you're like, oh man, I just said the same sentence 3 times in a row. You're not going to erase all that. You're going to leave it because that's easier to do. With it being electronic, you don't have to do that. You can go delete it and write new sentences, write better sentences. Look for places where maybe you used a word that, hey, I'm going to look in the dictionary and find a synonym for this word to make it more interesting or give it some deeper context or a more expanded, deeper idea. Okay, you can do those things because it is digital. So that's really a blessing for essay writing. Okay, and this last tip here, be interested in learning. If you approach your test with the mindset there's going to be passages in here that you can learn something from, you'll read them with more interest than just to kind of, oh, I'm going to do this to answer the questions. Read it with the mindset that I'm going to learn something from this test as I show what I can do. And I think you'll have a better outcome because you'll be reading for the information more so than just reading it because you have to. Okay. Okay, we have done a whole lot of things in this little section of time together. So does anyone get this joke? Sandwiching it back with our lead off on verb tenses. Does anybody have any kind of questions or things you wonder about or anything at all? No. Okay. I have great faith in all of you.
Wait, how much time do we have?
5 hours. No, yay, 5 hours, yes.
Will it show our character count?
Yes, and B-Day students, I'm gonna show you that tomorrow, what that'll look like, and we'll play with that feature a little bit. Yeah, B-Day students, I'll get to see you tomorrow, and we're gonna look at the app. Not tomorrow, Monday.
And on the
So.
second week, I did my essay last, I ran out of time. And I just submitted.
Yeah. Okay, Zoom friends, thank you guys for coming. I appreciate you all. I will see you guys, B-Day students, I'll see you Monday. Everybody else, I'll see you after next week.
Whenever we take the test, we just